ब्रह्मचर्यव्रती दंडी सर्ववेदांत पंडित श्रीमद्विवेकयोगी मां प्रचोदयतु सर्वदा. In our earlier discussions, we have seen how we have to work upon our own mind, get it cleaned of all impurities of unwanted thoughts and sentiments, and then concentrate it like a torchlight, use it to explore the nook and corners of our mind, meaning the subtle levels of our knowledge and understanding. So in this chapter on Dhyana and Samadhi, Swamiji gives us a lot of information about this aspect of training the mind through Dhyana and Samadhi. Because now we are standing at the very base of the pinnacle to knowledge. It is a very steep ascent now. We have seen Yama, Niyama, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, etc. Now Dhyana and Samadhi are the two ultimate mind control programs we have to adhere to if we start our ascent to grasp that ultimate knowledge. So here Swamiji tells us about the conscious and unconscious and superconscious, etc. So what are the levels of our mind's interactions? There are a lot of activities which we do which are consciously under our control. I eat, I sleep, I play, I sing, I talk. All these can be consciously controlled by me. But at the same time, there are a lot of activities over which we have no control, such as digestion, then heartbeat, the blood circulation. These are the things over which we have no control. But why can't we control them? Swamiji says we can control them by training. He says it can be demonstrated that every action of which we are now unconscious can be brought up to the plane of consciousness. The heart is beating. Apparently, I have no control over it. Swamiji is very, very clear that we can control the heartbeat, even stop it if we want. When they go to Nirvikalpa Samadhi, I think even the heartbeats are stopped. Very many yogis have demonstrated that. Similarly, how they can withdraw the mind from the body completely. All these have been clearly demonstrated by our great yogis. So he says, every part of the body can be brought under our control. We have then two planes in which the human mind works. First is a conscious plane in which all the work which we do have behind it I see, I do, I sing, I eat. There is a sort of egoistic touch behind every conscious activity. Then comes the unconscious plane where all work is unaccompanied by egoism, because I don't know where the circulation takes place, heartbeat, we don't know. So the I does not get printed there. That part of mind work which is unaccompanied with the feeling of egoism, that is what we call as unconscious work. And that part which is accompanied by the feeling of egoism, we call it as the conscious work. In the lower animals, this unconscious work is called instinct. In higher animals, like man, it is called as conscious work. These are two levels of work which are known to us. But it does not end here. For a yogi, Apart from this conscious and unconscious, there is another level of working. That is still higher plane which the mind can work. It can go beyond the conscious. Atindriya, trans-sensual, we saw it earlier. Just as unconscious work is beneath consciousness, so there is another work which is above the consciousness and which also is not accompanied by the feeling of egoism. Egoism is dropped because we have no control over it. The feeling of egoism is only in the middle plane. So when the mind goes beyond this line of the self-conscious, it is called samadhi or superconsciousness. For instance, we know that a man in samadhi has gone beyond consciousness. Then we may ask, how do we know? A man who is sleeping, he also is not conscious of anything. So isn't that akin to this superconsciousness? What is the difference between the two? That's a very natural question. Then what happens? A man who goes to sleep and gets up is the very same man. The angry, the bully, the bad, the drunk. There is no change in him because he went to sleep into an unconscious state. But when consciously we go into the superconscious, unconscious state, when he comes back, he is a changed person. He is no more the person who went into the unconscious state. He comes back as a jnani. A typical example is our Vatmiki. Vatmiki was a very, very cruel robber, robbing people who are passing through the forest. But when he was given the mantra of Rama, and when he went into the samadhi stage through his japadhyana, when he came back as Vatmiki, the great saint, great philosopher, great kavi, a knower of truth. That is the difference between the two. So, it is this enlightenment which comes through superconscious samadhi that is the ultimate in the Raja Yoga accomplishments. Raja Yoga tries to take man through the various steps of yama, niyama, etc., into this perfect oneness with the ultimate truth, into the samadhi. So just before samadhi, that step is the dhyana. Dhyana avasthita tadgatena manasa. Then what happens when he goes to that? He becomes an embodiment of knowledge. All the knowledge in the world comes to him. Kasmin bhagavan vijñāde sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati. There is nothing left out. Every knowledge is his. So, that illumination with which man comes back from samadhi is much higher that can be got from unconscious, or much higher than he can be got by reasoning or a conscious state by studies or research or anything. Whatever you get, but this is something totally different. So this samadhi is referred in the modern vocabulary as superconsciousness. It goes beyond the conscious level, it goes into the superconsciousness. So that is the idea of samadhi. What is the application? If I get into a samadhi state, what is the application of the samadhi? So Swamiji says, every attempt to go beyond is impossible, yet it is beyond the circle of reason that there lies all that humanity holds as dear. We are thinking this world, this consciousness, that is all that is in the world. No, the world has so many subtle truth and wealth of knowledge. Sometimes we think, who controls our weather, who controls our oceans, who controls our rains, who controls our inner movements, thinking, etc. There is some great power There lies all that humanity holds most dear. So, all these questions, whether there is an immortal soul, whether there is a God, whether there is a supreme intelligence guiding the universe, all this can be solved only when we realize this great truth. So, Samadhi is the ultimate in our quest for truth.